On March 19, 2026, Iran claimed it had done the impossible. Damaged a United States stealth aircraft that its radar was never designed to see. If they are right, every stealth mission the West has planned for the next decade needs to be rewritten. The official report from CENTCOM was a masterpiece of omission. They confirmed the aircraft landed. They confirmed the pilot walked away, but they left a massive blank space where the physics actually happened. If you follow the politics, you will argue over who is lying. But if you follow the physics, you find a much more uncomfortable truth. They are both telling the truth, and both are leaving out the part that actually matters, because the story of that night is not about whether stealth is broken. It is about the exact mathematical boundaries of the shadow, but the shadow only breaks under the right conditions. That night, Iran engineered the perfect conditions. The sky over Iran had been systematically disassembled. It was not a quick collapse, it was an industrial process. Decades of accumulated hardware, S-300 batteries, Bavar 373 complexes, long-range early warning nodes, had been mapped, degraded, and pushed into fractured pockets of resistance. The Iranian integrated air defense network was no longer integrated, but that did not make it harmless. It decentralized into hundreds of heavily armed autonomous kill nodes hidden within the jagged terrain of the Zagros Mountains. They survived in absolute radio silence, operating as passive ambush predators to avoid bringing down a torrential rain of high-speed anti-radiation missiles. That environment allowed the United States Air Force to push its F-35A Lightning II steeper into highly contested airspace. Missions that would have required massive suppression of enemy air defenses packages a month earlier were now being flown by single flights of stealth aircraft. The United States was leveraging the exact advantage it spent $1 trillion to build. But when an adversary knows that emitting radar energy means instant death, they adapt. They stop trying to fight the invisible shape of the aircraft they want to shoot down, and they start fighting the thermodynamics that the aircraft cannot hide. They also had help. In the years before Operation Epic Fury, Russia gave Iran something it was never supposed to have, a radar system built from the ground up to find aircraft that were not supposed to be findable. On the night of March 19th, deep in the Zagros range, an Iranian air defense crew stopped looking for an airplane. They started looking for a specific equation. Let us start with what the F-35 bought and what it paid for it. You do not get a fighter jet with a frontal radar cross-section roughly the size of a golf ball for free. You trade everything for it. Every piece of ordnance must be carried internally, severely limiting your payload. Every panel gap must be microscopically tight. The radar-absorbent material must be meticulously painted and maintained after every single mission. You sacrifice aerodynamic purity, you sacrifice raw payload capacity. You accept those penalties to buy the shadow, but the shadow has edges. The public perception of stealth implies a cloak of invisibility. The engineering reality of stealth is a hyper-optimized tuning of geometry against a very specific wavelength of electromagnetic energy. That golf ball-sized radar signature is exactly what an X-band fire control radar sees. X-band operates at extremely high frequencies with short wavelengths, typically between 8 and 12 GHz. It is the gold standard for weapon systems because short wavelengths provide the high-resolution tracking data required to guide a surface-to-AI. The short wavelengths provide the high-resolution tracking data required to guide a surface-to-air missile directly to an intercept. The F-35 was ruthlessly designed to deflect X-band energy away from its source. The F-35's airframe achieves this through two mechanisms working in parallel. The first is geometry. Every external surface is angled at a calculated inclination, typically between 15 and 30 degrees from vertical, so that incoming X-band energy reflects away from the source rather than back toward it. This is specular reflection. The airframe becomes a mirror that bounces the radar beam sideways into empty space. The second mechanism is the radar-absorbent material, a composite coating embedded with ferrite particles and carbon-based compounds, tuned to absorb and dissipate electromagnetic energy at X-band frequencies rather than reflect it. Together, these two mechanisms reduce the aircraft's radar return by orders of magnitude, not to zero, to noise. Imagine playing hide-and-seek in a pitch-black warehouse. The F-35 is a marble, and the enemy is searching with a highly focused, very thin flashlight. The chance of the beam hitting the marble and reflecting straight back is infinitesimally small. But what if the enemy changes the flashlight? This is where we encounter VHF radars, very high-frequency systems. These operate at much lower frequencies with wavelengths that can be over a meter long. When a wave that large hits the F-35, the aircraft's geometry and surface treatments become far less effective. The wave does not scatter cleanly. The marble grows, not to the size of a commercial airliner, but large enough for the radar operator to know that something is moving in the void. Enough for an operator to pick up a phone and make a call. The reason involves a phenomenon engineers call the Rayleigh resonance region. When an incoming radar wavelength approaches the same physical dimension as the aircraft structure it strikes, a wing leading edge, a control surface, a panel seam, the structure begins to re-radiate electromagnetic energy rather than absorb it. The radar absorbent material, precisely tuned to centimeter-scale X-band frequencies, has virtually no effect on meter-long VHF waves. You cannot coat your way out of resonance. The physics of the situation simply will not cooperate. That is the spectrum gap. It is the gap between invisibility and survivability. The engineers who built the jet knew about this gap from day one. It is an acceptable trade-off. A VHF radar can illuminate the general area of a stealth aircraft. It can tell you a ghost is in the room. What it cannot do is tell you exactly where the ghost is. The wavelength is physically too large to generate a precise tracking solution. Detect does not equal track. Track does not equal lock, and lock does not equal kill. Knowing an F-35 is somewhere in a 20-mile block of sky is tactically useless to a missile. This is precisely what the Russian-supplied 55ZH-6M resonance, the Rezonans-NE, was built to do. It is a VHF over-the-horizon radar operating in the meter wavelength band. Its detection range against low observable aircraft is assessed at over 600 kilometers. It does not try to lock on. It does not guide weapons. It reads the spectrum gap. It finds the ghost in the room and passes a geographic cue, a rough bearing, a general block of sky. That cue is enough to activate a second, entirely different weapon system. One that does not care about radar at all. And no radar frequency on Earth is going to close it, but something else can, and it does not emit a single watt. Pause. You can shape a titanium and composite airframe to deflect radar energy. You cannot shape thermodynamics. The defining characteristic of the F-35 Lightning II is its engine. The Pratt & Whitney F-135 is the most powerful fighter engine ever installed in a production aircraft. It pushes approximately 43,000 pounds of thrust when the pilot calls for full afterburner. But the F-35 has one critical limitation compared to its predecessor.